and welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. It is Tuesday. We are in somewhat of a cooler office today. Things have chilled out a little bit, but we do have one of the hottest authors of the moment and one of the hottest books I have read this year. Arcana Academy, Elise Kova. Hello.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yay!
And literally here in the UK.
I know. Right, so we have been kind of supporting your books for ages. So the Air Awakens series we stocked, and I remember when I first started at Forbidden Planet, I was like, steampunk. It's like, let's pick up it, and yeah, phenomenal. So this kind of feels like it's about time you came in.
It's been crazy to think that this year is actually my 10-year anniversary of becoming an author.
Yeah.
And what I like, and this wasn't intentional, but my first book was Air Awakens 10 years ago, and I just released Arcana Academy, and both are AA as the. I'm like, I love those little full circle serendipity moments.
Oh my god! Oh, wow. It's incredible to. I mean, we'll obviously come back to this, but the amount of books you've written, the amount of kind of series. You have this amazing thing on your website, which people should go and check out, where you kind of help people pick which book they should read, depending on what mood they're in and what kind of tropes they particularly like. So there is something for everyone.
And thank you for reminding me that I actually need to update that quiz with Arcana Academy. I haven't done that yet.
It's such a good idea because, you kind of, I very much am a mood reader. I'm sure a lot of people are the same. So you can be like, oh, I really kind of want some epic book this week, and then next week you just want something a little bit more kind of, maybe shorter, maybe a bit quicker, depending if you're traveling and stuff. So yeah,
exactly. And I have multiple series that I've written in the same world. The Air Awakens world now has 4 series in it, and you can start with any of the book ones, but alternatively I have other worlds that aren't connected at all. And so it was something that I really wanted readers to know of, you really can start with any book one, just pick the one that's most interesting to you.
Mm-hmm. And stunning covers, and that's one of the first things I'm going to say about Arcana Academy. It's the most stunning cover, and you have 3 potentials. So for people at home ordering signed copies, you have potentially 3 hidden colorways for we've got swords, cups, and coins. Yes, of course. So yeah, so you might even get all 3. The collectors out there, was that something that was kind of conscious at the beginning of cover art and design? Are you kind of quite involved in that aspect of the book?
So I started out as an indie author, indie also being self-published, and for those titles, of course, I have a lot of say in the covers. So when I moved over to the world of more traditional publishing, working with fabulous publishers like Otterscape, I definitely went into it being like, please don't shut me out of the cover design process. But also it is a very different market at the same time. You don't think of it that way, but when you're putting a book on a shelf, and that's kind of the forefront versus selling a book predominantly more digital, which is more on the indie publishing side of things, you sort of have different considerations for what you look for in a cover. And I think it ended up being a fabulous collaboration between me and the publisher, where there was a lot of them bringing their expertise and saying, we think this is a really good idea. And me, most of the time being like, I think that is a wonderful idea too. But there were a few things where, I'll go back and I'll say something like, and I'm trying to think of examples, but this cover illustrator really knocked it out of the park first try, I remember. But, I might go back and I might say, oh, what about this or that? One thing I remember was for the under designs, the case designs, you can actually put them all together, and you can make, for the extreme collectors, they do all connect. And personally, I just liked the idea if people could hunt down the one that corresponded to their house, or almost like a sort of, let's see what destiny has in store for me, what destiny thinks house I should be in. But I had suggested, what if we kind of reorganize them in the initial concepts to follow a progression that sort of fit the book a bit better. And Hotterscape was amazing and said, yeah, we love that. So it definitely is a fabulous collaboration.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And the proofs as well, my Clara proof. Stunning. And everyone was clambering for these a few months ago, understandably. So, because, yeah, it's beautiful. And it's interesting what you said about the kind of, I suppose, the trad publishing versus kind of indie. I know my partner was traditionally published, and then he's recently done independent horror book that he's self-published, and just the whole process kind of reversing, like suddenly you're in control of everything, and that's quite a daunting kind of task. And we were like looking at various covers and various like motifs to use, and then I think at one point he really wanted a giant moth on there, and then I was just like, this looks a bit too much like Silence of the Lambs, so I think we might have to take the moth away. But yeah, it's such an interesting idea, like where you suddenly, yeah, you could really kind of knock it out of the park in a indie sense, you know, getting the right kind of cover designer and getting kind of the right
and also getting feedback from people around you and other readers, because that's one thing on the indie side you can lose, because you are making all of the decisions yourself. Where on the traditional publishing side, you have a lot of different eyes that are kind of baked into it from the publisher that'll be on it. And I think it's fabulous that your partner was seeking outside opinions and getting that, because you do get so close to it that you don't see those things right away, whether that's in the editing or the cover design or the marketing, that you just think like, oh, this is the right decision, and then someone comes in and is like a perfect example, I'm not going to say who or the cover because it wasn't used, but there was a friend of mine who had a cover design who came to me and they're like, what do you think of this? I feel like something is off. And I was like, the castle looks like a phallus. Oh. And I was like, and as soon as I said that, this author was like, oh, I can't unsee it now. That's the problem. And I was, it got edited, it's perfect. But you know, those are the things that you're like, you're so, because obviously this person knew it was supposed to be a castle, and they knew all the references, and I was like, I don't, and all I see is an unfortunate design. Yes.
I'm so glad that got caught, because we've all seen some questionable covers over the years that you're just like,
yeah,
I'm not sure what happened. But yes, yeah, I'm glad that didn't make it through. So, what can you tell us about your new book, Arcana Academy, and where did all the initial ideas come from? Now, I know you read tarot.
I do.
So that's quite exciting. Was that kind of an idea from years ago about incorporating tarot? Or?
Yeah, I learned how to read tarot when I was 8, so well before I have a deck with me, actually. Never leave home without one. But I always have loved tarot. It's always been a part of my life, and I knew I wanted to, after becoming an author, I knew I wanted to write a book that had tarot as the basis for the magic system. But the idea of a magic system is not a story, so the first thing I had to kind of wait for was like, what is the actual story that surrounds this magic system? And then as I was developing it, it felt quite ambitious to me at the time as an author, and I was like, I need to grow as an author, because sometimes you sort of have those ideas that you're like, I don't have the technical skills yet as a writer to implement this the way I would want to. Because every card is effectively a different spell. So there are 72 total spells in the book. And I will say to readers who are unfamiliar with tarot, you do not have to memorize all 72 cards or read tarot to understand. I tried to, as I was writing, I really tried to make it approachable by sort of explaining in the moment, refreshing people what different cards did. So if you just want to read on vibes and go with the flow, you'll hopefully, enjoy that. But if you are a reader who wants to read more in depth, there is a glossary in the back of the book. I think the back of the book was the right place to put it instead of the front of the book, just because there are cards that maybe aren't supposed to exist. And so seeing them up front might spoil a few things about the story. So, I if you are a reader who loves more in-depth elements of the magic system, there is the glossary there.
It's such an exquisite magic system. It's probably one of my favorite I've read.
You.
I love the idea of tarot. There's been some absolutely beautiful decks and quite a few that have tied into kind of book series. So I know Maggie Stiefvater has a deck of tarot which is stunning. I think Erin Morgenstern also has a deck of tarot.
So there's
So
quite a few.
Yeah, there's some quite beautiful things out there. Have you ever thought about designing a deck yourself?
I would love to have a deck. I have thought about tarot decks since Air Awakens. Like,
Right.
I have a sheet of different characters
Oh my
and
God.
like what I would want the cards to look like, and I can envision obviously a deck for this
Yes.
story. I think the thing for me, if you can't tell by my covers, is I love art. And my favorite tarot decks are the ones that have a unique and intricate illustration for every single card.
Mhm.
And that shows like the meaning of the card and all of that. And I know I would be particular about the art, and that is quite a big endeavor from an art perspective. So I'm not saying never, but honestly, if it gets held up, that's probably on me more than anything else, because I'm like, I don't want to do it if it's not going to be perfect.
Yes, it might be one of those things, you know, gets announced in like the booksellerese, and then 10 years later it comes out. Like, it's perfect. So, also what I found quite interesting, and this is of the many things that came out of lockdown, we definitely noticed a lot more people buying tarot decks and buying kind of books about witchcraft and the occult. Do you think there's kind of, what would you think the reason behind that could be? And maybe the positivity of predicting or seeing your own fate, or?
I think it could be that. I always tell people tarot is what you make of it. You can just look at decks and appreciate the artwork. You can use it as a form of fun psychology, where the cards just show you different ways to think about a problem that you might not be addressing or be, approach in a different way. You could think of it as a higher power guiding the cards, or a force of nature, magic, however you want to think of it. I mean, I think during the pandemic, we were all in a position where we were clamoring for some sense of control, because we didn't have a lot of it. Our worlds were turned upside down and everything was uncertain. And I think that tarot can provide an element of that control, perhaps, to some individuals. I mean, it was why I wrote A Deal with the Elf King at the start of the pandemic, because I wanted to write a standalone novel that was fun for me to write about a young woman who, is captured and is kept inside, but everything ends up being okay in the end, because she's captured by a very attractive elf king.
Yes.
A little bit of wish fulfillment there. but I think that we were all just sort of looking for that meaning and control where we could find it, and ways to process.
Oh God, yes. And I think that actually wonderfully brings us on to Clara, because kind of looking for a element of control maybe with the character of Clara, and obviously she is trying not to spoil anything for anyone out there. She has an amazing ability to be able to kind of draw the cards, almost like some kick-ass like Gambit style, where you can just imagine her like doing all this amazing. Was that kind of, where did Clara come from, and how did she change kind of as you were writing the book?
Clara, I really wanted to write as a scrappy but capable character. I love magic systems that have some kind of cost, and I love looking at how the magic impacts the world. So in the world of Arcana Academy, magic is highly regulated. And because, of course, if you have a force that is as powerful as magic is, you're going to have some kind of ruling class. Unless you're writing a utopian society, you're going to have some kind of ruling class that's going to regulate, control that power and the resources that create it. And so Clara is a character who is sort of on the outs of the society. She starts out as basically an outlaw, imprisoned for using illegal tarot magic, and she is definitely of the mind of, I'm going to do whatever it takes to break down this system. And I think that one of the things that I really wanted to encompass in Clara's journey is that it is one thing to be the destroyer, to be the rebel, to break it all down, but then there comes the question of, okay, so let's say you succeed, what then? And I think that it it is in some ways easier to destroy than it is to create. And Clara's journey is very much of, all right, you have the power to undo it all now. What are you going to put in its wake? Like, it's great to say I'm going to build this ideal society, but what does that actually look like, and how do you get there?
And it's very interesting. I was rereading the book over the weekend in preparation for today, and it's very interesting because up until the end, I think she's still trying to kind of work. She hasn't really thought what will happen when. You know.
Yeah, and that's really her journey throughout the trilogy. It is a planned trilogy. A lot of readers ask that, and I'm very confident. I have finished the draft of book 2. I'm deep in edits for it right now, and I'm very confident it will wrap up in 3 books. But that is very much her journey, is, you know, figuring out the answer to that question. So she doesn't have the answer at the end of the one. You're absolutely right in that.
I suppose maybe you'd almost be disappointed if she did have the answer. You know, like, you kind of, I don't know, you kind of want to, I'm just really rooting for her.
Well, it's a very big existential question.
Yes.
It's something that, you know, we have to all grapple with, and it is in a very large way, sort of a very similar to how we all have to decide what do we want our lives to look like. And that's a question that we're asking ourselves constantly every day, because every day is a new opportunity to wake up and reshape your world in some way.
And I suppose the whole idea of what you will give up, so that's another thing that obviously the book touches upon. So the idea of the trials and the elements of, like you said, the price you have to pay for attaining power or for having this magic. It's, the trials are superbly written as well. I have to say, it was so interesting to, especially obviously the first trial kind of hits you around a bit, because you're just like, would you be able to give up something that, I don't know, could potentially be your future happiness?
Yeah,
like, that is.
I love writing magic trials. It is one of my favorite things. And I will say, the first trial, that it is the first trial, but it was the first thing that came to me of what I wanted to do for them. I had ideas for the others, but I think it very much because, and I'm speaking from an American background, a US background when I say this, but you know, as a millennial who went through university in the US, I have so many friends who have had their lives completely changed, in the best cases, not in a great way, to completely upended with, you know, the debts that they're saddled with from going to university. And the idea of, it's a literal sort of implication of your future is your tuition. You have to sacrifice elements of your future to enter Arcana Academy and stay in Arcana Academy. And, you know, there are other reasons for it to be revealed later. But it was definitely something that I wanted to include in there, of the price of not just power, but knowledge. And, you know, something that I have seen in my friends, and maybe some of them could relate to, just that feeling of like, wow, I'm getting this thing, but at what cost?
It's kind of intense when you talk about it like that as well. Just thinking, for obviously a lot of people, similarly over here, the fees are a lot more expensive now than they once were. But I suppose there's an expectation of, you're doing this thing and you'll get a job at the end of it, and I, like so many other people, who finished university and then you're just like, oh yeah, okay. Now what? Lost.
And it's again hard questions that you have to ask and
like
figure it out.
Relocating potentially and things like that. So yeah, I quite like how this book definitely kind of seems to mirror a lot of kind of real world things. And I think it helps them impact even more, because you can definitely imagine yourself almost in those situations, and how you would make those choices. So we have to talk about the range of characters, because you must have had so much fun writing these characters. And there's going to be obviously people in books that people will love. There's going to be probably people that they hate. who would you say of all the characters, who do you think changed the most from your kind of original idea of that person to the end of the first book?
So there is a character that Clara meets in the academy. Her name is Lauren, and she went through a lot of evolution from the original draft to the final draft, and as a result of that, she's actually ending up playing a larger role in the greater series than I even imagined her playing. But I love having all of these side characters and all of these different people that have their unique lives and their goals and whatnot. Allure is one of my favorite characters.
Yes.
She is a complicated character, and will become even more complicated as the series goes on. But I think one of my favorite things to do is I try and write characters that, even if they seem on the surface or to the main character as good or bad, there's not one broad brush that everyone is painted with. And so, you know, even the most vile individuals, and there are truly some vile ones, they have reasons for why they're doing what they're doing. They might not be justifiable for their actions, but they at least sort of explain the mentality that they have and what they're doing. But my goal always as an author is, I know not everyone will like every character, but my goal is that readers understand why characters are doing what they're doing.
Yes.
Like, you don't have to agree with the character, but as long as the choice makes sense, then I'm like, all right, I did my job.
So that's a very good point, because I'm always of a mind, the characters that stick with me, like after I finish a book, are either the ones that you loved or the ones you just hated so much. So it's with this cast of characters, it feels like like there's so many other stories going on. There's so much history there. There's, you know, the world is a lot older in this book. You know, it feels, well, even with the academy being quite new, the world feels very old and lived in, which is great to see, because you're just like, I wonder where that goes. I wonder what happens in the mountains. I wonder, you know, there's so many other.
And it's so painful as an author, because I have a lot of those stories in my head, and I have no reason to put them on the page. Like, there's no reason for me to talk about this character over here doing this random thing. But I'm like, it's really cool. What they're doing is really cool.
If you think about it. So now let's have a look at. We have to now talk about, obviously, the love interest. That the slow burn of slow burn, and then it's very spicy, which I very much enjoy. So yeah, where did that come from, and is that a trope that you particularly enjoy, like the slow burn, like enemies to lovers, like, I hate this guy?
I love enemies to lovers. I especially love it when, because I do think that, you know, if you truly have enemies to the extreme of these two individuals have done irredeemable things to each other, for me that's a hard hurdle to get across. So I really love it when, you know, you have enemies by circumstance, but then you can peel back the layers of those characters, and there's still complexity there, but it's maybe not as black and white as it first appeared. And I love the pining. It's the will they, won't they, the brushing of knuckles, the, you know, oh, I have to kiss you to pretend to put on a show for people. Oh no. I love all of those moments and getting to write them.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell you probably had fun writing this, and this as well. Like, one of my favorite authors is Holly Black, and it definitely gave me kind of Caden vibes, which
I will take that as a high honor.
which I was over. I'm here for this. So, and especially as you've got the royal family as well, you've got kind of the multi layers of that kind of love interest and stuff as well. So was that the power dynamic? Was that something as well that?
Yeah, I mean, I because again, Clara comes from this more disadvantaged background, and Kaelis is the prince, our love interest. He comes from this very privileged background because he's a prince. But one of the things, going back to the idea of systems of power, is that, you know, even unless you are at the top position of a system of power, and you really are the one in control, even individuals within the systems are being hurt by it. And now, granted, I'm not saying all suffering is made equal by any measure. Obviously, depending on where you are in that hierarchy, your life looks very different. But I like that idea of it's not black and white. And Kaelis, even though he has received so much benefit from this system, he has also had an immense amount of hardship from this system too. But the question Clara has to ask is, how much does that excuse of what he's done or what he does want to do? Because he wants to tear down the system as well, and he wants to get something out of it. And that becomes a question of, why does this man who exists in the system that from the outside you would say would benefit him, why would he want to destroy it?
Yeah, it's interesting again with the reread, kind of picking up on some of the points where he's like, he wants to remake the world, and some of the points some of the phrasing is, we need to. And it's interesting to think, I mean, I'm not even going to try and predict where it's going to go. But, you know, yeah, the idea of what are your motivations, and yeah, it sounds a bit as if it's going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity, so you got to get it right.
Yeah.
Really. And that kind of touches on something that is also just hits really hard in the book is the loss of some characters, or kind of that, I suppose, that shadow of death that comes with a world that's this kind of multi-layered and has kind of, you know, the them and us kind of mentality. Yeah, how important is that to kind of, I suppose, to spur your characters on, especially obviously Clara?
I think that I enjoy stories that feel like they have stakes and some teeth to them. And if every character feels safe, there's an element of that for me as a reader where I'm like, okay, everyone's gonna be fine in the end, which is okay. Those books have a time and a place. But if I want to read like an epic fantasy that has some of those really high stakes, I kind of want a body count in there. Yeah. And I think that, you know, again, going back to Clara's journey, is she has to not only decide how much she's willing to sacrifice, but at what point do the sacrifices outweigh the gains? If you can rebuild the world but to be the way you want it, but you lose everything you loved in the process, what good is that? And, you know, those hard questions. Or, you know, another thing that is a sort of push and pull between Clara and Kaelis is Clara is very focused on, I mean, she has some of these bigger ideas and notions of what would be better for society, but she's very focused on her family and the people that she cares about most. Whereas Kaelis really does not care for his family. And so he's very much of, I'm looking at the world and I'm looking at the bigger picture foremost. And I think that's another balance between them of, you know, for what reason do you do things?
Yes. Yeah. They're obviously their motivations are very different, but I can see why he would hate his family.
Yeah. He didn't win a lot in the family department.
No. I mean, it does obviously feed into the very, like, brooding.
Yeah.
You know, spare to the air, kind of, you know, stuck in the background a little bit, and yeah.
More a tool than a son.
Yes, yes. But fighting back, which definitely get behind. So your writing process. So how do you think that's kind of changed over the years? And are there certain things like playlists and things like that that really kind of help you focus in on what you're writing?
Yeah, my writing has changed a lot over the years. I have a firmer handle on story. It's funny because it's changed a lot in some ways, but it hasn't changed at all in other ways. And I'm sure your partner is probably the same way. We were just talking about this before, but I am a discovery writer in a lot of ways, and I have to see it on the page to understand the character and their voice and to feel the scenes and the flow of the story. And because of that, I am notorious for completely gutting and tearing apart and rewriting. There were characters in the original draft that are not in the final one. There were characters in the final one that were not in the original one. The ending of this book is completely different from the first draft. And that really, to be honest, that really hasn't changed. But I will say, I think that, you know, going back to what I said about growing as an author, I feel like I can take on a little bit more complex stories with a lot more nuance than I could 10 years ago, which is what you want to see. I mean, you want people to grow, and I always say the next book as an author is your best book, and that's how it should be, because you should be growing and learning along the way. I feel like there was a second part of your question. I completely forgot it.
Playlist.
Oh yes, thank you. I write to music. I daydream and plot and write to music, and there is actually an Arcana Academy playlist. It is on Spotify. I don't know how regions work as far as playlists on Spotify.
I might have to check that out. I think in theory you can kind of wherever.
I feel like you'd be able to find the playlist. Maybe if some of the songs might be region locked. I don't know, but it is on my U.S. publisher's Spotify. So if you search for Arcana Academy, it should come up. And then I also have a Spotify. I don't use it very much because I'm an Apple Music girly myself. I'm sorry, but I do have playlists for some of my other books and series and worlds as well.
Was there would you say there's a particular song or artist that encapsulates the Arcana Academy?
Encapsulates, I don't know, but I can say the song that was the initial inspiration when I was really like, I think I have a story here, and I was figuring it out, and it's a Fall Out Boy song called Love from the Other Side. And the lyrics that really stuck with me were sending my love from the other side of the apocalypse, and what would you trade the pain for? And those two lyrics, I was sitting there thinking, like, characters, other side of the apocalypse, and, you know, trading the pain for something more, but what would it be? And I think, as our discussion has shown, those kind of got played into the story.
Good old Fall Out Boy as well.
Good old Fall Out Boy.
I like how, especially like currently, all the old bands are coming back. Like everyone who used to listen to are suddenly now all on tour, and it's just like,
there is a 13-year-old girl in me that I won't lie, wants to go to Vegas to see the Backstreet Boys.
Oh my god. I mean, like, you kind of think at the time you missed out on those things because, you know, either wasn't old enough or, like, obviously concert tickets and stuff. But now it's just like you can just go see everyone.
Well, that's the thing. I've seen so many people basically going to all of these bands, the millennial generation of bands, being like, we have adult money now, go on tour.
Yes, exactly. I will buy the t-shirt.
Yes.
I'm there.
I missed the Eras tour, and I still weep for that. So now I'm like,
a few of my friends went. I remember seeing like video footage of them trying to get home, which was quite crazy.
The whole thing was crazy in a beautiful way in some ways, but
very crazy. And for our last couple of questions for today, so you obviously hinted at the series, so you're working on or edits and stuff for book 2.
Yes.
Have you got like a firmed up idea of the end of the series, or will that potentially change?
I think I have a firmed up idea for the end of the series. It really firmed up in book 2 because I'm as an author, I'm very like, I don't want to drag a series out longer than it needs to or shorten it. So I will always tell my readers, I think a series is going to be this many books, but wait until I'm at a certain point where I can be confident. And as I was writing book 2, I really had a clear image of, yes, this is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to end.
Okay. Oof. Exciting. And for our last question today, what are you currently reading, watching, and if you game, what are you playing?
So reading, I am slowly working my way through The Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. That's out in the US. It's out in November. I assume it's going to be out in November here too.
Yes.
Fabulous, loving it. I finished The Deathless One by Emma Hom. That was what I read before it.
Okay,
And then
yes.
the next book that I'll probably read is Danielle Jensen's young adult series, Dark Shores, is going to get its final book out shortly. So that's kind of my TBR where I'm at with that. I am slowly working my way through Apothecary Diaries.
Okay,
As for what I'm watching, I am in love with that show. I would die for Momo. And then playing, I am still obsessed with Elden Ring Night Rain. I'm a big FromSoft fan, and after, you know, playing through the original game 5 or 6 times and then playing through Shadow of the Erdtree 3 or 4 times, the second Night Rain came out, I was like, well, this is my entire personality now. I think as of when I left, I had clocked about 75 hours or 80 hours into the game, and I would probably have more if I didn't have a toddler at home.
Yes,
so
yes.
That does unfortunately cut into gaming, reading, and watching shows.
Yes, yeah. No, it will be either a child or the job. Like,
yeah.
I have to go to bed because I huge gamer. I recently played, and I think this is something you might enjoy, Expedition 33.
It's so high on my list.
Because there's a character who does tarot cards.
So I was just on tour in France, and I had multiple individuals at different moments be like, you need to play this game, and I'm like, I know.
Oh my god. So the character is Xiao, and she uses light and dark magic, and it affects the cards she draws.
That's cool.
It's just so I was like playing this, reading this, and I was just like this is all coming together. So yeah, if you can bear to step away from Night Rain.
My husband, he really wants to play that too, and that's gonna be we co-op games together where we'll pass the controller.
Yes, that's such a good idea.
That is gonna be our next co-op game. He's just playing through Baldur's Gate 3 again while he waits, while I'm getting out my Night Rain obsession, but soon. Probably when I'm back.
Yes, yeah. Well, message me when you do. It's such an exquisite game. Very, very, very exquisite, very heartbreaking, beautiful. So I'm sure you will love it. But yeah, that character particularly. Yes.
I can't wait.
So yeah, thank you so much, Elise, for coming in today. And yeah, for anyone at home, we're about to get all of these signed, so you can head to any one of our 10 stores, or you can order a copy online, and we do ship internationally, so wherever you are. But we will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for reading.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.